Welcome back to the BetCanada channel. Katie Caldwell and Jeff Lloyd back here with you. Jeff, let's get into some Lamar drama. So, ESPN did a poll with NFL executives, coaches, scouts. Lamar Jackson was voted as the fourth best quarterback in the league. I feel like this is yet another offseason with Lamar Jackson getting disrespected. He's coming off yet another historic season on so many levels. What is your reaction to this? And frankly, why is his greatness being so downplayed?
These things are actually always funny because these things come out right as we're about to begin a new season. So none
Exactly.
of this has anything to do with what's about to unfold. Obviously, all of this is based on
Right.
most likely the previous season. Um, but if you do look at it, and first things first, I I don't think to be called a top five quarterback in today's NFL is a knock in any way whatsoever.
Mhm.
We've been doing these previews, and you talk about Patrick Mahomes, you talk about Josh Allen, you talk about Joe Burrow, you talk about Lamar Jackson. To even be mentioned with each other, obviously, is the biggest compliment there probably is. If you're not in that group, and maybe you're a little bit lesser than the best in the game.
Mhm.
So these things, and this is what happens this time of year. The it dries out a little bit as far as content and news. So
Yeah.
you get the Mount Rushmores of franchises that everybody loves to do. Um, I think there are people who are still confused with Lamar Jackson and think he's just an overall playmaker athlete. I think in these scenarios, the fact that Lamar is so effective with his legs and that is such an important part of the Baltimore Ravens offense,
Mhm.
it ultimately ends up probably becoming a negative for him when we're doing overall quarterback rate. Because it doesn't seem like anybody equates this stuff into it. And like Patrick does a little bit with his legs, Josh, da 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 da, but certainly nobody gets the production the way Lamar does.
Mhm.
Also, though, I mean, if you wanted to say even if he was 3, okay, well, Patrick Mahomes went to the Super Bowl. Josh Allen went to the AFC Championship game. So how does Lamar basically top those 2 guys? And for me, I don't know how. If essentially he did not, get to the level that either one of those 2 did, he
Mhm.
probably would fall below them. But to his credit, I mean, he just continues to improve. I think one
Yeah.
of the things that I have an issue with where people, don't give Lamar his credit is there's really been a lot of involvement for Lamar in the early part, in the infancy of his days in Baltimore. It was his legs, it was the
Mhm.
running game, it was the tight ends. It took the Ravens 4 or 5 years before they found out what they felt was the right way to get the wide receiver room right, to get Lamar to start using that part, that skill group to enhance their overall product. Zay Flowers has certainly been outstanding for them. Every year it seems like they kind of rotated in one of these veteran wide receivers who most teams felt maybe, the dust was coming off the rose, so to
Mhm.
speak. This year, of course, it's Nuke Hopkins going to be there. But you see the overall improvement from Lamar and now adding this part to the offense and excelling there. To put Lamar fourth, and again, I get it. I get it that you say if you were just, oh, well, Lamar Jackson, people think he's the fourth best quarterback in the league, but there's such a great group of quarterbacks right now overall in the top of the
There
NFL
are. Yeah.
that I think the biggest knock is to not be in that group, not necessarily where
Mhm.
you ended up within that individual group. And I feel that just because they didn't go as far as in the playoffs as the Bills did or the Chiefs did, that's kind of maybe how Lamar ended up obviously lower than those guys.
Quick pause. If you haven't subscribed to the BetCanada YouTube channel, you can do so below. It's free and it helps support our channel so we can keep bringing you NFL and NHL content. Now, back to the show. It's so funny because I feel like so much of the conversation last year was dominated by who's going to be MVP. Is it going to be Josh Allen or is it going to be Lamar Jackson? And it felt like everyone's vote was either one of those two. So it was kind of funny to me to read that he was in that fourth place spot. What do you think contributes to that disconnect between his performance and how some insiders will rank him? Was it just that he was seen as a pure runner and his passing isn't there yet? Because I feel like we really saw that start to improve. Is there a narrative or a bias at play when it comes to evaluating Lamar Jackson specifically?
I think the Derrick Henry thing probably hurt Lamar Jackson here.
Okay.
Because for years, Baltimore, and this was the thing when Baltimore originally made and, got into the Derrick Henry market, ultimately landing Derrick Henry. For me, it was like, well, I don't know necessarily that they needed him. I mean, here was a team that always ran the ball well, and
Mhm.
obviously with guys lesser brand name than Derrick Henry. You put Derrick Henry into it, had a fantastic season, obviously, with the Baltimore Ravens. But I think once you put that, brand name at the running back position into that offense with Lamar Jackson, I think there's people who probably felt that what Henry did maybe kind of took away what from Lamar had always been doing, where it always seemed like Lamar was the show in Baltimore.
Mm.
But now you brought in a player at another positional group who is this very high top of the food chain guy, as Lamar is, that maybe kind of said, well, it was easier because teams were, focused so much on Derrick Henry. Possibly be true. Certainly, it could. And,
Mhm.
so that's probably where he takes the tick down this year. And, for one thing, and Lamar, one way or another, has kind of been taking these criticisms his entire NFL career.
I
Certainly took
agree.
these
Yeah.
criticisms during the draft process,
Mhm.
and you just saw exponentially in his time at Louisville how he was just continuing to grow, as a passer,
Mhm.
his overall understanding of, the passing game. And then it's really, really obviously hitting top shelf level, with his time in Baltimore. And, the other thing is, in any way of trying to, give a knock, and Lamar Jackson's always been that guy that, kind of feeds off of any criticism he feels is,
Yeah.
coming his way, which
Yeah.
certainly doesn't work well for the rest of the NFL, certainly doesn't work well for the rest of the AFC North. He's a special talent, and, he should be certainly, lauded, for the overall that he brings to the position, that he brings to the game. Because when you are going to talk about these quarterbacks and break them down individually, these top
Mhm.
quarterbacks, Burrow, Mahomes, of course, Josh Allen, and Lamar, Lamar's got that difference maker. So in addition to being a guy that can obviously throw and throw extremely well, he throws an extremely low amount of interceptions. You also have this guy that, the potential is there every season to give you an
Yeah.
extra 800,000 yards on the grounds with his legs. It's, again, I think it's because he is so diverse in this
Mhm.
scenario. And when you have the older way of thinking with some of these, but when you start saying NFL GMs, NFL executives, these are the people who are still ingrained in the Mannings and the Bradys
Mhm.
of the quarterback position and don't maybe necessarily appreciate or understand the overall talent level and just exactly what Lamar Jackson does each and every season.
And that's such a great point, and that's exactly why I asked that about, is there a narrative or a bias here? Because it seems like Lamar specifically, there's just a group of folks that sometimes I just wanna shake them and go, "You're not seeing the same thing that I'm seeing." So given Lamar's growth, given the team's direction, what should Ravens fans be watching for in this next season? Because 'Cause I've seen them as favorites to win the Super Bowl, and honestly, I think they rightfully should be in that category. He improves every season, the team feels like it's getting better. What should Ravens fans expect this season?
Well, I think we've actually talked about this a little bit, when we've done the division previews,
Yeah.
and it's for Josh Allen and certainly for Lamar Jackson, it's now, and this
Yeah.
is why they are not, and aren't viewed as the number one overall quarterback in the NFL. You need to get to the dance. You absolutely have to, and for the level that these guys play,
Mhm.
and look, it's brutal because when you talk about, and it's, no disrespect to Joe Burrow, he just doesn't have the overall team right now that obviously Lamar, Allen, and Patrick Mahomes do.
Notably
But
on
the thing
defense.
is, yeah, but when you say Mahomes, you say Allen, you say Lamar Jackson, all 3 can't go to the Super Bowl.
Mhm.
Only 2 of them possibly can go to the AFC Championship game. So for whatever one falls short of even the AFC Championship game, at this point, that's gotta be considered a disappointing season.
Mm.
This is how good these teams are. This is
Yeah.
how good these quarterbacks are. You fall short of that, and it's basically now the bar has been set so high by themselves and their overall play. If they don't reach the championship game, if they don't reach the Super Bowl, it is basically a disappointment. And for the longevity and the careers that both Allen and Jackson have had to this point, you figure, probably about halfway through both of their careers, maybe a little bit longer on the field if they continue to stay as healthy as they are.
Mhm.
The thing now is, and what will define, how great the legacy is for each of them, is going to be a Lombardi. It's going to be
Yeah.
a Super Bowl ring. That's essentially the only thing left for these guys to attain, and falling short should feel to them, to their fan base, to their ownership, to their coaching staff that they missed the mark.